Well, most householders at some time have been frustrated when they've tried to legally dispose of toxic rubbish, finding the local dump either isn't open or won't accept it. Not too many of us, though, would have driven hundreds of kilometres on such a quest. But that's exactly what happened to asbestos removalist Andrew Watts. He's told State Line the disposal system for asbestos is so confusing and inconvenient that it's leading to illegal dumping.
It's an increasingly familiar scene in coastal towns around the state, ramshackle shacks making way for a more stylish sea change. But in this case, the old place will be biting the dust with as little fallout as possible.
The owner started the job himself, but realised it was a bit more of a job than what he realised, so we've come in now to go and remove the outside cladding. Well, it's timber frame, Oregon frame and hardwood floor joists, and the outside cladding and some of the inside is lined with asbestos, bonded asbestos. So it's just our job to go and remove the asbestos, and then the demolition company comes in and removes the rest.
Andrew Watts has been a builder all his life. He's been professionally removing asbestos for the past 4 years. He's based in the Riverland and today is working on York Peninsula. And while it may not be everyone's ideal job, most of the time Andrew Watts thinks it's pretty good.
I love owning my own business. I've got terrific people working for me. I do it with a passion because I really care about people and that they don't put themselves at unnecessary risk.
Strict rules and regulations apply to professional asbestos removers. It covers the clothes they must wear and the equipment they must use. And the monitoring that must be in place.
And then we'll put our orange fence bunting through here so nobody can accidentally walk in through the back.
And once it's removed, the rules say the asbestos must be carefully packed on wooden pallets and covered in heavy-grade plastic. It then has to go to a dump registered with the Environment Protection Authority, which is where Andrew Watts says it all falls in a heap.
There are 31 waste disposal depots in South Australia that are licensed to handle asbestos.
The whole part of our business, from way to go, with all the rules, regulations and everything like that, they're consistent and you can follow those rules and guidelines. As long as you stick by those, you don't get yourself into trouble or you don't put anybody else at risk. Now, all of that works fine until we come to the last bit of it, the disposal of the asbestos. That's where the whole show falls apart. So many times I've gone to EPA registered tips and the operator doesn't really have a clue as to how they're meant to unload it, for example, or where they're meant to stand, or whether they're meant to have a mask on or not.
Andrew Watts blames middle management in local councils, which he says seem unsure of the rules, and so there's a lot of improvising going on. And he gives a recent example.
'Cause I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the deserts bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've travelled, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere.
He removed asbestos from a house in Robe. Andrew Watts says the local Kingston dump was closed that day, so he went to Tailem Ben, which he says told him they can only take asbestos from their local area. He says the Cambrai dump said they needed more notice, so then he went to Clare, where he had another job that day, and eventually took the whole lot back to Loxton in the Riverland.
That's right, 963 kilometres. And it's not the first time, it's not an isolated incident.
The EPA believes that all of the waste depots that are licensed to handle asbestos do so in accordance with our requirements. And if we thought otherwise, we would take action.
Do you think they know what they're doing? Does he have a point?
If waste depots are having requirements in addition to our own, that's up to them, and that's not something that we have any issue with the operators. Our only concern is that asbestos is handled appropriately. It's a hazardous substance, so we're concerned that it's handled properly and disposed of properly, and we are convinced that that is the important thing and that that's done.
So who needs to make sure that it is actually happening, though?
It's up to local councils to make sure that the waste management in their area meets the requirements of the community.
which Andrew Watts says just isn't happening. He says the sheer inconvenience of it all is leading to an increase in illegal dumping. He took these photos this week in the Riverland. Andrew Watts believes the dumping is being done by a minority of rogue professionals as well as frustrated householders, and the worst example he's seen was in the Barossa Valley.
If it's made hard for people to dispose of the product, well then this is the situation that happens. Look, I've picked up asbestos from next to a playground in a little park at Angerson recently in a creek bed.
There's no evidence of an increase in the illegal dumping of asbestos. There are occasions that we are aware of, but between government and state government and local government, we endeavour to make sure that those are followed up.
Dr Raoul Antic has had more than 30 years' experience as a thoracic physician, which means he's treated many asbestos victims because exposure primarily affects the lungs.
This condition can develop as a result of a very small exposure, and the same with pleural plaques. This condition normally requires a large exposure over a prolonged period of time and is not the condition we would be concerned about with inappropriate dumping.
He says most people have been exposed to asbestos and only a small minority will ever develop a malignant illness. But Dr Antic argues the fact that those diseases are invariably fatal and that it's utterly unpredictable who will get what means it's not worth taking a risk.
One should be looking to a community that is very well aware of the dangers of illegal or inappropriate dumping, because even small amounts of exposure lasting for a few hours at a time have been reported to cause disease, and the community awareness should be such that they should protect their young in their recreational activities. They should protect people in future generations from reaching an environment where there may be exposure to asbestos. It is important that the community takes clear responsibility for the proper disposal of asbestos fibres from our community.
The EPA says it's convinced the asbestos disposal system is convenient and it cannot compel dumps, even if they are licensed, to take asbestos. But Andrew Watts argues a solution is needed quickly because with the federal government's stimulus package kicking in, he's getting more inquiries about removing asbestos than ever before.
I really want to get a positive out of this, some consistency so that it's great for the householder, the council, members of the public, contractors like myself, so that the rest of my business can be completed in a really professional manner.